The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of Comoros. I request protocol to escort His Excellency. On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome His Excellency Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of Comoros, and to invite him to address the Assembly.
Excellence.
President of the General Assembly, Secretary General, Your Majesties, Excellencies, distinguished representatives of Member States, ladies and gentlemen. Above all, I would like to address my warm congratulations to His Excellency Mr. Abdullah Shahid for the efficiency with which he led the work of the 76th session of our General Assembly, and His Excellency Mr. Kasaba Korosi, who succeeded him. I congratulate you on your outstanding election, and I can assure you of the solidarity of the Comoros in your task. I would also like to thank His Excellency Mr. Antonio Guterres, Secretary General of the United Nations, for his sustained commitment, and all of his team for their work in the service of peace and development. Majesties, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this 77th session of the UN General Assembly is being held at a particularly delicate time in the life of the international community. From one year to the next, the face of the world has changed, and for 3 years now, our countries have been facing the worst health crisis of our history, notably the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic, as you will know, has brought all countries of the world to its knees and has shown that all countries, big and small, all face these risks from disease. And this is really one of the worst crises that the planet has ever had to face. In that regard, the Union of the Comoros once again would like to address our thanks to all of those that have worked so quickly to provide effective solutions within months, giving hope again to the world that progressively we could come out of this crisis, which has seriously damaged the world economy. And as if that weren't enough, another crisis caused by the invasion of Ukraine has shown once again the dramatic way in which the multilateral system is fragile. And yet this is what we come here together to discuss today. The price of wheat and other foodstuffs have reached levels never seen before, and this is endangering food security by increasing the risk of shortages and of famine. And that is why my country condemns in the utmost manner this invasion, and we call upon the international community to convince Russia and Ukraine to pursue the path of dialogue as soon as possible. That is the only way to end hostilities. And I would also like to welcome the Istanbul Agreement of last July, led under the auspices of Mr. Erdogan, President of Turkey, and Mr. Antonio Guterres, allowing the export of millions of tons of cereals that were blocked in Ukrainian ports. Those agreements must be consolidated. They are proof that dialogue can and should always take precedence in order to avoid the world falling into chaos and into misery. Ladies and gentlemen, apart from the concerns linked to the conflict, the health crisis, the current food crisis, the community of nations must continue to find the most appropriate solutions to the political and territorial claims of states. And that is why I reiterate here, on behalf of my delegation, the imperative need to find rapid, just and fair solutions to the flagrant injustice being suffered by Palestine. We have to find a solution that will ensure the rights of the Palestinian people to have a sovereign state of their own, with East Jerusalem as their capital, living in peace and harmony with the state of Israel, because, as they say, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your neighbors. With regard to the Moroccan Sahara, I repeat the support of the Comoros to the Moroccan nature of the Sahara. The autonomy of this region as part of the sovereignty of Morocco, in our view, that is the best basis to bring about a rapid, pragmatic and lasting solution to this regional conflict which has lasted for far too long. And my government also strongly encourages dialogue between the brotherly countries of Morocco and Algeria, and we welcome all initiatives that could help to ensure peace in this region, particularly the relaunch of the political process on the basis of Security Council resolutions. And along the same lines, with regard to the sovereignty of states, the Union of the Comoros repeats our position with regard to the need for China to be able to recover its sovereignty over the island of Taiwan. Given the threats that we see today hovering over peace, my government would call upon all stakeholders in various conflicts to show a sense of responsibility and restraint. In the particularly difficult area of the Sahel, we know from experience just how dangerous it can be to allow areas of tension to develop. They then become fertile ground for the expansion of international terrorism. My government in Eastern Africa has seen Al-Shabaab. This is a threat to the entire continent. And I reaffirm here, as I did last year before this august assembly, that these groups that threaten peace in the world are not Muslims. They are simply terrorists that have nothing to do with Islam, which is a religion of peace, tolerance, and living together. However, we are aware that behind these current terrorist movements that we have to fight, we also have a lot of frustration amongst the young people that don't see a future for themselves. And here I would call upon the great powers of this world that their support is capital to contribute to the social and economic development of countries. That is very important to respond to the needs of the beneficiaries of this aid. Peace and security in the world need prevention. Prevention is the only way that we will be able to address problems upstream through diplomacy. This is how we can address the difficult issues that are threatening peace in the world. And of course, if we're talking about conflict, we have the territorial dispute between my country and France with regard to Mayotte. Like previous governments, we would recall before this august assembly formally that in accordance with international law, this island is Comoran in nature, and the sovereignty was removed during the decolonization process. This is a painful dossier, and it's gone on now for more than 40 years. But we hope that we welcome the dialogue that has been created between the French and the Comoran counterparts. Ladies and gentlemen, the principles and the values of the United Nations are now focused on the Sustainable Development Goals, and each country has made these a priority. We would recall that climate change is one of the most important aspects of these SDG goals. Whole regions are going to disappear, and others are on a daily basis facing climate phenomena such as flooding, intense droughts, fires, the loss of coastline and acidification. If this disaster spares no country or region, and small island developing states such as the Comoros are in a particularly bad situation, and they need greater attention to be paid to them by leaders. And I take this opportunity to once again express our condolences and our support and sympathy to the people and authorities of Pakistan, to all those families that have lost family members through the flooding in that country. We are also facing other dangerous phenomena such as piracy, pollution, illegal fishing, the pillaging of marine resources, and drug trafficking and people trafficking. They require great attention to be paid. And we are part of all regional and global initiatives in order to fight these barbaric acts, which are a serious threat for the security of goods and people. And that is why I have always attached the greatest importance to the security of our geo-strategic area, particularly in the Mozambique Channel and the southwest of the Indian Ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, my country, the Union of the Comoros, has just celebrated its 47th year of independence. And the first 2 decades saw a lot of troubles and political instability, but for 20 years now, thank God, the country has been able to find again peace and stability. We need to do everything to ensure that we can consolidate this political stability. That is a real yardstick of the socio-economic development of the country. We need a peaceful society that is cohesive and inclusive of all its components. And that is why, in order to bring about greater peace and social cohesion, in last February, we held a national political dialogue aimed at bringing together the citizens of the Comoros around essential goals, namely peace, security, towards lasting economic and social development. And that's why I would like to thank all partners that have provided their support to this dialogue. I am convinced that all political forces in the country that took part in those important talks will work towards consolidating what's been achieved over the years and ensure democratic changes of power and development in the country. With regard to human rights now, allow me to stress that my country works closely with regional and international bodies that are tasked with implementing the quadrennial review in 2019. Essential reforms have been implemented, showing the willingness of my country to ensure that human rights are a national priority. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, with regard to the social situation, COVID-19 has forced countries to give priority to the management of the pandemic. We had 2 waves in the Comoros. The second was more virulent than the first, with a number of victims. Nevertheless, the situation was mastered in the country, overcome thanks to the early measures taken by the authorities and supported in that, as we were, by all of our bi- and multilateral partners and civil society, and I would like to thank them all here once again. The Union of the Comoros, thankfully, today is an island country and has taken steps to avoid a new outbreak of this disease. The government thanks countries helping us with this crisis arising from COVID and also worsened by the Ukrainian crisis. I welcome the action of all development partners helping the Comoros, and once again I thank you for your help. With the United Nations system and a new framework for sustainable development that has just been signed for the next 5 years, that perfectly aligns with the Emerging Comoros development plan. That is our plan for the development of the country. All of these efforts combined of the government and of partners and multilateral partners should move towards a common goal, namely to see our country improve by 2030. And we plan to organize at the beginning of December a follow-up seminar for the conference of the Partners in Development that was held in France in 2019 in order to accompany these challenges before us before 2030. And here I would like to appeal to all of our partners that we find ways together to move towards meeting our Paris commitments to fund the various projects in the program. Regionally, we attach particular importance to cooperation between the Comoros and the countries with which we share a common destiny in the Indian Ocean. We also participate in regional efforts to ensure security in the East African area, and we provide our support to the friendly Republic of Mozambique in their struggle against terrorism, a scourge which spares no country. International solidarity is therefore important in order to fight this scourge and ensure all of our security. We come each year to the United Nations to express our interest in multilateralism and our conviction of the essential role of this organization to make the world a more humane place. And this year, we renew our commitment to work for the goods of everyone, the good of everyone. And I'd like to stress the need for the international community to continue to be unified and to show solidarity that we will find appropriate solutions to the great challenges of our times for more peace, progress, and for the good of ourselves and future generations. Thank you.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the President of the Union of the Comoros for the statement just made, and I request protocol to escort His Excellency.